DNS is a pretty complicated protocol to explain in one short video, but nslookup is a nice little tool for doing domain name resolution. You saw before when I typed the ping command. So if I just pinged google.com, it does resolve to an IP address, but nslookup gives us another way to do that. That's probably a little more accurate. So I'm just going to type the nslookup command, and then I'm going to simply type drexel.edu, and there we go. So we have Drexel's information. I can do it again, but I'll do it for google.com. Now notice when I do google.com, when I did a ping, I only got one IP address, but if I do an nslookup on google.com using nslookup, it shows me all of the IP addresses for google.com. So clearly Google's got more than just one IP address. They've got a whole bunch of different IPs, and there are metrics assigned to each one of those depending on the name server that you're querying. So this is one way to use nslookup. You can also use an interactive mode. So if you just type nslookup, so I typed nslookup, I could do the same thing. I could type drexel.edu, or I could type google.com, and it gives me their records. I can also change the record type, so I can set the record type to MX, which is email record. So MX is sort of a subset of DNS. When you do an A record DNS query, that's for their regular IP address from a host name. But sometimes mail goes to a different address, even though it's the same domain. So, for example, if you have a Drexel, if you go to www.drexel.com, that goes to, or drexel.edu rather, that goes to one IP address. But if you send email to Drexel, that might go to a different email address. So you would want to do an MX or mail exchanger lookup. So I'm going to set my query type to MX, type drexel.edu, and you notice it looks a little bit different now. So I get a slightly different result. This time the address is 144.118.66.98, so that's different from drexel.edu, which was just 72.220.195.27. So that's where my email would go if I were trying to send email to Drexel. Using SMTP, which we already discussed is what sends email, SMTP. And you can see there that the host name is actually smtp.mail.drexel.edu. I'll switch over to Windows now. nslookup works exactly the same way in Windows. Again, I'll go into interactive mode. This time I'll do, let's see, we'll set the queue to, or the query type to PTR, which stands for pointer record. And this time I'll put in an IP address. So I'll put in 74.220.195.27, oops, with .27, which we know should be Drexel. But it doesn't come back with an answer, so it can't find a pointer record for drexel.edu. But what we could do is we could, so I'll exit from this by typing exit. I'm going to ping drexel.edu. So it's pinging now, and it's getting a response. So obviously that IP address resolves to drexel.edu. So if I go back into nslookup, and I'll set my queue equals PTR, and now I'll use that IP address, 144.118.66.83, which is what I've resolved, and it didn't come back. Actually, it did. I'm sorry. There it is, www.drexel.edu. So that does work doing the pointer record lookup. There's lots of different types of records you can look up with nslookup. CNAME, A record, on and on and on. You can look up a list of those, but we don't really discuss that too much in this course. The other interesting thing about nslookup is it allows you to use alternate name servers. So I can type default server, and I can indicate somebody else's domain name server to use for my lookups. So if an example of this is frequently what will happen is some DNS server in your network will have cached the wrong DNS name or the wrong IP address for a DNS name, and maybe you want to verify that it's just you, or maybe you want to check to see what other domain name servers are saying. You could set your default server to something else, and you can look it up elsewhere. So you can use Google's DNS or something like that to try to bypass your own DNS server, unless of course your firewall blocks that traffic. So that's the nslookup command.